Hey guys, welcome back to another What If scenario, and this time around, for this one it's going to be fun because I brought a expert of Star Trek lore.
I don't know that I would consider myself an expert, but thank
you're
you very
an
much.
you're an expert of the two of us.
Compared to the two of us,
Yeah.
yes, I'm definitively the expert on Star Trek.
So we're going to be so I asked my dad to join me in a video talking about like a what if scenario of what if like the Jedi and Sith existed in the Star Trek universe. Basically, like for this, like we're taking out, like it's not like they crossed over into this dimension. It's like they've always existed. Like there's no Galactic Senate, no like Darth Vader, no Galactic Empire. This is just like the Jedi and the Sith. What if they were always a part of Star Trek lore? So you kind of like understand a lot of like Star Trek Federation, and I'm going to say right off the bat, I think the Federation and the Order would be allies, but they would not be like they'd be tenuous, and also like I don't think they would try to allow the Order too much power or sway, because that was one of the problems with the Galactic Senate was they depended too much on the Jedi, and that led to a lot of problems. So the Federation would be like, no, we don't need religion and your religious stuff in here.
Well, I'm good. My counter argument to that is there's a scene in the original series, and then it's also adapted, and they use it in Strange New Worlds, and it's where the captain literally says, according to our many faiths and customs and beliefs and yada yada. So I think they would look at the Jedi as like a religion rather than a thing like that, and I think they would just let them exist in their own little religiosity.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But they have like very different codes. Like you have like, because Jedi can go where the Federation can't. Like they don't care about the Prime Directive. They care about like doing what's right.
Right.
So,
well, that's why I think that they wouldn't necessarily be like together. I think without a Galactic Senate or an Empire or any of those things, the Jedi is just a religion, and I think the Star Trek peeps would probably be pretty cool with it. I don't think that they would. It wouldn't mess with them. I don't think. But I don't. To kind of follow on your point, I don't think. Would they let them be members of
that was the next question.
I don't know, because they'd have to be in order. They have rules in the Star Trek canon. They have rules like your planet or your system has to have one single government. You have to contribute to the Federation. There's a lot of things. So I think these people would just be Federation citizens, and then be allowed to do things. Do I think they'd ever be allowed to serve in Starfleet? That's a very interesting question. My shoot from the hip answer is yes, but I think they would see them as like genetically modified, and they just had this big episode about how they're getting, they're trying to loosen up the thing about genetic modification. Although currently it is still illegal in the Star Trek universe to be an augment.
Yeah, but would the Force count as an augment?
Good question. That question kind of got answered a little in the most recent episode of Strange New Worlds, where they ruled about Una Chin Riley's status and all that other stuff, and because she was born augmented. They didn't address that. They addressed whether or not, because if they have an out in the rules and regulations or whatever, it says if you ask for asylum, you can be given asylum. So I think that probably the Jedi would probably try to keep themselves real super quiet, and if they were to be found out or discovered or whatever, I think that they would be granted asylum, because in Star Trek world, it's a big giant utopia, and everybody loves each other and everybody gets along, and so that's why I think it would go that way. I think
the big thing is that like if you let a Jedi into the Federation, like there's obviously conflict of interest. Like obviously, like the Jedi have a certain rules and codes, but at the same time, the Federation have conflicting codes. Like, would they be allowed to practice using the Force and all that? Also, I don't know if the Federation would be cool with that's a whole episode of itself of like kid found Force sensitive, Jedi comes like, we're here to take the child, our law practice, But it's a Federation planet, so would they be stealing a Federation child?
Good question. I think they would have to say that if it's their religion, the Federation doesn't interfere with people's religious practices. So, I don't know. I think if you were a writer, I think this would be a very fun thing to explore. I think just talking about it in generalities, I think if you look at, the Jedi aren't interested in having a planet or having in the modern era, as far as I understand it. So they're just all practicing this ancient religion, and that the Federation is just a big giant kind of a landlord, who doesn't want to mess with you unless you're doing things that they don't like. They don't really talk too much. It's interesting in Star Trek about like how they do civil policing. There's very little discussion about that. So I don't 100% know how that works. So I think it would have to be one of those. You'd have to first explore how does the how does the Federation, or Starfleet's military, so civilian policing. So you'd have to talk about how they do that. And I have no idea how that works. I don't know that that's really been talked about. So, but I think they're super compatible. I mean, I think the thing that you'd have to worry about is you'd have to worry about some, people in the Federation being very worried about somebody who can
move things
with their mind and read minds and influence people across billions and billions of miles, and wield a giant laser sword and everything else. I think that there would probably have to be, you'd have to address it in some way, because once again we talk about if they're inherently all good, then they can't be all powerful, and if they're all powerful, then they can't be completely.
So you think Section 31 would take Jedi, or
I think they would want it. I think they'd be very
experiment on a body?
I don't know about experimenting, but I think they would be very interested in. I think the shadowy world of Section 31 would be quite interesting.
Especially they'd want to get someone they're hey, can you alter this guy's mind?
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think that they would run the risk of being utilized for questionable and perhaps even nefarious reasons. So, and we also don't know a whole lot about Section 31 is big in canon and stuff like that, but it doesn't make a lot of appearances in the shows and stuff like that. Because I think they're just trying to keep it a big giant
they'd really
mystery.
want to know how to use Federation-made lightsabers.
Right. Oh, I could see it all now. Right. I mean,
instead of kyber, it'd be dilithium crystal-powered sabers.
Maybe. I don't know. That's an interesting. Like I said, that's something for writers to talk about.
I also think they would keep Jedi would keep a lot of the secrets from the Federation, how to build a lightsaber and whatnot, and be
well, again, that's their religion, so they would be able to say, "Hey, look, you can't monkey with our religion."
Yeah, I do think though that there would be some conflict of interest. The Federation would get a hail from a planet, and well, we didn't send anybody down there. It's but there's a guy down here, there's a dictatorship. It's not under Federation law or whatever, and there's a guy down there. It's a Jedi who's already fighting these people, and they're what do you want us to do? And they're go down there and capture him if you want us to be part of the Federation or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think that, but they don't do that. They have that big rule about not interfering, so I don't know that they would. You also would have to talk about, oh God, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. Here I go. All right, so we don't really understand how in Star Wars lore, how faster than light travel works. It just does. In Star Trek, they're big on the science, so they talk about how, when they talk about warp drive, what it does, the theory. And please, if you're a science dude or a Trekkie or whatever, don't flame me on this, all right? But this, what I think, how I believe it works, is that the science of Star Trek says that it folds space around them, and to go faster, you have the folds happen faster in front of the ship, and the ship is propelled by it. It gets a little bump of inertia, and then it creates a field around the ship, and then that's what propels the ship faster than the speed of light. So rather than, you're not actually going anywhere per se, you're folding space around you to get someplace. And that's how I'm pretty sure, don't hate on me, Star Trek people, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Whereas in Star Wars, and don't hate on me, Star Wars people,
there's lanes.
Right, and you can go faster and things like that. It's more about velocity, whereas in Star Trek it's more about warping space around the vessel to get where it's got to go. So, crap. Where was I? I was afraid of this.
You went down a rabbit hole.
I did. I went down a.
But talking about like influence and whatnot, let's talk about like the Sith and their effect on the Star Trek universe.
Okay, well, they would be viewed as inherently evil by the Federation, but of course they would try to negotiate first because it's they're all talk first, talk.
Well, the
second,
thing
talk
is
third,
that like if this is like the rule of two, then they're pulling all the strings.
Correct. They would be pulling strings, and so it would probably happen. It would be, it would be very covert, and they wouldn't even know what was happening until. And then but it also could be a scenario like in the Star Trek universe with the changelings. They were until they were absolutely totally revealed. They were behind the scenes pulling strings in
Picard.
Well, right, but they were also, but wind the clock back, to Deep Space Nine, where we discovered they're pulling the strings of the Cardassian Star Empire, they're pulling the strings of the Klingon Empire, they're pulling strings everywhere. They're the puppet masters, you know what I mean? And to them, solid beings are just, we're just organic dummies for them to command. So, whereas in Star Wars, the Sith are more secretive and they don't, their goals are different than it's what are your motivations. So it would be hard to, and the same thing, I think it would be it'd be so clandestine and cloaked in mystery, and it would be a mystery wrapped in an enigma, whatever.
But here's the thing: they wouldn't have a problem with infiltrating the Federation. Like you could have like a member of one of the admirals as really the Sith Lord.
Super easy to do that. Yeah.
I mean, look how easy Palpatine did it.
Right. Well, not only that, it's that's been explored too. That was in an early episode of Next Generation.
Yeah. It would be so easy to turn the Federation into a galactic empire.
Oh yeah, and you wouldn't even know it.
Yeah.
And then and it would all be done, on the hey, we need breathing room and all that other stuff.
It wouldn't be so hard to turn the Federation into the Terran Empire.
No, I personally think it's kind of funny. It would just take a little nudge, and then all of a sudden you go from being this, all good utopian society to being the dominant force in the quadrant.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be hard, and it could be done very easily and sneakily, and that got explored in Picard too, where they had the Borg were already at like the top of the freaking food chain before they even realized.
And the other thing is too, like you look at like what they could do, like break down, like instead like trying to destroy the Organian treaty of between Klingons and the Federation, or just kind of nudging another Romulan war.
Yeah, it wouldn't be difficult. And there's also there's other big bads that don't get explored too very much. I think this season, again, don't hate on me, Trek people, but I think this season in Strange New Worlds, the Gorn, I think, are the big bads.
Yeah.
So I would like to see how that goes. They're kind of a fascinating species, and I'd love to see how much more they could do with them. As far as they got introduced in an original series episode where these godlike beings were trying to decide what's the difference between good and evil. So anyway, so there's that, and then at the end, Kirk doesn't kill the Gorn captain, and then of course, obviously, we haven't even seen them in Strange New Worlds, but we're kind of led to believe that they're these lizardy reptilian shapeshifters, so that's kind of spooky too.
Yeah, they're like space Vikings.
Oh, but like even more so. They also they make this big thing about they cull the weak and all that other stuff. So
the other thing, like if you want to talk about like the Sith in the Star Trek universe, is like there are so many places they could hide. Like there'd be so many people willing to work with them.
That is correct. There's plenty of people out there that hate what the Federation stands for, think that it's all fake and phony, and that it's just another big giant bureaucracy. And, You know what I mean? So it wouldn't, that's not.
That's the thing is like you could have them hide on Romulus or Cardassia and people would be like willing to listen to them.
Well, I think they'd be right out in the open.
Yeah.
I think they could easily be openly hating them because here's the deal. Again, with Star Trek, it's this whole big giant free utopian society. So if you don't like something, you protest against it, and they're not going to stop you.
Yeah. But the thing is like if the Jedi existed too, they'd be hiding from them.
Correct. That's the thing. I also think that, like you suggested, they would be pulling this. They wouldn't be the ones doing the protesting. They would be the ones, walking on. Hey, those guys suck. Yeah, they suck over there. And then all of a sudden,
it could easily be the Masters in the Federation, the Apprentices, like Dooku was in the Clone Wars.
Kinda. Yeah. It could easily be done because again, those are the easiest societies to. To do those big free and open societies are the ones that are probably the easiest to manipulate.
Yeah. So by the end, and I know there's a whole rabbit hole of like what would like the Q or the other like godlike beings we have in the Star Trek. That's too much. Like that's too much to really like talk about. We're just talking about like the factions.
Yeah. That's because if you talk about the Q continuum or you talk about the Organians and there's so many of these races and civilizations that have levels of achievement that us as corporeal humans can barely comprehend. We're really just gnats to them.
Yeah.
So
and I think they would look at that, but you throw the mysticism of like Jedi and Sith in there.
I think
it gets muddy.
Well, true, but remember, I mean, they're not. Nobody has demonstrated the kind of levels of power and sophistication that beings like the Organians or the Q possess.
Or Trelane or whatever.
Trelane, who I think, by the way, was suspected to be a Q.
They confirmed it in one of the books.
That Trelane was a Q. So, anyway, it's an interesting concept. I know there's already been a bunch of crossovers between Star Wars and Star Trek, between the governments.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an easy thing. Like I said, I think that in Star Trek world, I think the force wielding beings, whether they're Jedi or Sith or neither or both or whatever, I think they're allowed to exist. I think they're not tampered with. And I think that it just kind of happens, and I don't see that.
Now, do you think that, cycling back to the Federation and Jedi, do you think that the Federation would openly accept any help from the Jedi Order, or would they be
good question.
Because they're kind of like samurai. The Jedi and they have their own.
They have their own thing, and they don't take orders from people. And if they want to help, they help, and if they don't, they don't. So, I don't know. I think that and there are plenty of times where the Federation has partnered with outside people.
Yeah.
But everybody's got to be on the same team, and I don't think that the Jedi are interested in being on anybody's team but their own. So, I think
like if a war broke out, it'd be like, hey, we know you guys are keepers of the peace. We kind of need help.
Yeah, we need some keepers of ass kicking. So I don't know. That's interesting, but the problem is also.
Where does if the Jedi's on a starship, is it like where's his authority?
Well, none, because he's just a hired gun, right?
Well, it'd be more like I have a if you wanted I'm here, you wanted my advice. Here's my advice, and would they try to like supersede like?
Because
remember they were generals in the Clone War. It's a new concept of you're here to sit and watch. When we need a laser sword, we'll get you.
Yeah, we'll get right to it. I don't know. That's a good question. I think it would have to be something so big that required the assistance of a being that had these remarkable gifts and powers that they would be necessary, because it would be I just think it's hard for me to grasp, because even when they talked about because they could have very easily played in Next Generation, or even in Picard, they could have played the Q card.
Yeah.
And he could have just snapped his fingers and just wiped the Borg out of existence. But they didn't do that because it's too easy.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't know how you grind the gears to get to that. You know what I mean? So I think hypothetically, I think it's a fun thing to explore. I think it's a cool it's a cool little thought experiment. But I think they're just so vastly different. It's hard to conceptualize a way that they get together. Because, like I said, Star Trek's already explored the omnipotent power species trope. And certainly they would probably see the Jedi as that. But again, I go back to my original point, which is they would see it as a religion and they would just leave them alone.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
On a side note, it'd be kind of fun to see Riker and Windu kind of kick ass together.
Oh, that would be great, right? Could you imagine, frickin' Jonathan Frakes and his big giant chin? Just,
they say another fist hides in Jonathan Frakes' beard.
Oh, I'm sure it does. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
so I think that'd be a lot of fun. All right, moving on. What else we got? What else we got today?
That's about it.
All right, that's the only one to explore today. All right, well, humans, thank you very much. Good to see you again.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy coming up really for us, I don't think. I don't know. What all? We got any movies coming out we're gonna go see?
Not till July.
What's in July?
Really, it's only Haunted Mansion and Oppenheimer.
Oh yeah, soft pass on Haunted Mansion. Oppenheimer's got some question marks for me. I don't know. We'll have to see. I heard a lot of stories about Robert Oppenheimer and his dealings with the government after the atomic bomb, and there's some stuff. If you're kind of one of those history nerds like me, look into Oppenheimer's dealings with Harry Truman and see what Truman had to say about him, and then that might change your point of view. Anyway, that's about it, I guess. I've been catching up. Speaking of Star Trek, I've been watching Strange New Worlds. I really like that. I like that show. That's a good show. I like Pike. Pike needs to be a little more. He needs to be a little more like, shoot first, shoot second, shoot some more, then ask questions. I would like to see a little more cowboy out of him. I know it's all kinder, gentler, and we love everybody, but
I think they're trying to make him a mix of Kirk and Picard.
Maybe, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, but then again, it does kind of fuck with you when you know where you're going to end up in a couple years.
Yeah. I think that's maybe it. I mean, I think that colors his whole, his whole, the way that he does anything. I think that, and I think we would all be like that, I guess. Or the other way is if you're going to end up like this, you just pull the fuck it lever, man. I mean, just whatever. You're going to wind up in this chair breathing out of a machine, so why not just do whatever you want to do? Just do whatever. Anyway, so that's the story.
So you guys tell us in the comments below what do you guys think it would be like if the Jedi and Sith existed in this universe, and thanks.
Yeah. Also, if I was wrong about any of the tech stuff, just feel free to gently correct me. Don't be a dick.
All right.
Dad says, don't be a dick.
All right. In other words, I'm Mr. Multiverse, Pop Multiverse. We'll see you next time in the Multiverse.